Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hartz, and today I'll be breaking down the 3-game slates we have here for the NFL on Saturday. That is right. We have 3 NFL games this Saturday. Tomorrow, $1 million up top to first place on DraftKings, so a ton of money to be won. Can't wait. I mean, NFL Saturday and NFL Sunday, that's going to be a very, very fun weekend. So I'm going to be breaking down these 3 games, going over my favorite spin-up plays, value plays, and some mid-range options to put into our lineup. I'll be building a lineup as well. So stay tuned for that. Hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Check out the other stuff I've linked in my bio, and I'll see you guys in the breakdown. So for this 3-game slate, we have the Colts versus Vikings, 3.5 point spread, 47.5 game total. Ravens versus Browns, 3-point spread, 38 game total. And then Dolphins versus Bills, 7-point spread, 43 game total. Now for this slate, I'm just going to go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and then defense and flex. So for the quarterback situation, I think it really comes down to your risk tolerance. Josh Allen in this Buffalo and Miami game, there's supposed to be a snowstorm and it's supposed to be windy the whole game. So that could definitely affect how much they pass it. According to Vegas, Vegas is still expecting them to score. But when you look at Josh Allen and Tua's passing props, they have them at 225 yards right now. So not a whole lot adding up with those two things going on. But yeah, for this quarterback situation, it comes down to just your risk tolerance. So we know with Allen and Tua, Allen is going to be your safest option. And then Tua, kind of the second safest option on the slate. It's just one of those things with the weather now affecting this game tomorrow for Buffalo and Miami. There's a risk going to Tua and Josh. It could be one of those games where the offenses just don't look great and that you're not able to throw the ball, and it takes out all the top tier wide receivers on both sides of Miami and Buffalo. So we'll have to see how the ownership stacks up with that weather news affecting this game tomorrow. But I still like getting risky with Josh Allen. Obviously, he has the huge rushing upside, so even if he's not able to pass the ball a ton, he can still run the ball a good amount and definitely get you there with just strictly running, as he did versus Detroit Week 9. Only threw it for 205 yards and no touchdowns, and still got you 86 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. So really like Josh Allen, going to be the safest play on the quarterback side. But with the weather news, that definitely makes it easier to get different at quarterback for this 3-game slate tomorrow. Obviously, Tua's there. He has upside, but not a huge rushing threat. So definitely a lower ceiling and floor with that weather. I think it makes guys like Deshaun Watson and Huntley more viable. Even a Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins. Watson looks better in that second game, threw it 42 times. At Cleveland, so there could be a little weather there as well. But he's a guy who's run it 6 and 7 times the past 2 games, so he's the rushing upside. It's just going to take time for Deshaun Watson to get back into the flow of things. They are a run-first offense, so there is that kind of eating into his upside, but really like getting different with Deshaun. I think he's the best option to get different with on this quarterback side. And then right behind him is going to be Huntley. Not going to throw the ball as much, still should be able to throw it a decent amount. But he's also going to run it a ton as well. 10 attempts the first game, 9 attempts that second game. So 2 quarterbacks who the throwing game is pretty risky because both their teams do like to run it a lot. So I mean they both kind of have limited upside when it comes to throwing the ball, but they should throw the ball a good amount. If I had to decide between the two, it would obviously be Deshaun. I just think he's a better quarterback. Obviously, 2 years ago, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. 2 years off, doesn't look great right now, but still think, he's able to build off that past, has all that experience, and I do think he'll start coming around soon. So, do like Deshaun Watson is my favorite, risky quarterback option. Huntley right behind him. And then for Kirk and Matt Ryan, obviously it looks like the best game environment because they're in a dome. Minnesota's defense gives up a ton of points. That should lead to more than enough upside for Matt Ryan to at least get mid-20s fantasy points if he's going to throw the ball a good amount. We've seen it only once in the past 4 or 5 weeks going against Las Vegas. Otherwise, they have not looked good against Philly. Obviously, good defense. Pittsburgh, solid defense. Dallas, really good defense. And yeah, he hasn't looked great since then. But he does have that upside. Minnesota's pass rush is not like those 3 other teams. The defense is, decent, but they're still able to give up a ton of points. So Matt Ryan is definitely there, definitely an option. He's definitely viable. Kirk Cousins, same thing. They do rush the ball a good amount with Dalvin Cook, even though he hasn't been efficient. He does throw the ball a decent amount, averaging like 35 times a game, even though he does only really focus on Justin Jefferson. Doesn't get too many other guys involved. They do struggle when it gets to the red zone, but I mean, he looks like a decent option. Obviously, he had a great game versus Detroit, best game of the season, 28 fantasy points. Before then, he's had a 22, 20, 24. So he's kind of floating in that low 20s range, 6,000 against Indiana. If they go up, their defense gets some stops. They could just rely on Dalvin Cook or just Justin Jefferson. And then, Indiana's going to have to throw the ball. So, I mean, in terms of quarterbacks, how I'd rank them, even with the weather risk, I'd rank Josh Allen as my number one. I think Deshaun would be my number two, really, even though he's super risky. Tied with, Deshaun would be 2. 3 would be a tie between Huntley and Huntley and Kirk. And then 4 would be Tua. 5 would be Matt Ryan. But yeah, it really comes down to just ownership for tomorrow in the quarterback situation and your risk tolerance. If you want to get risky, going to that weather game in Buffalo, or if you want to, play it safer and go to that dome game in Minnesota. So yeah, that's kind of the situation with quarterback. For running back. Running back is kind of a headache. You got the 2 pay up options, Chubb, Taylor. Taylor's going to be super popular for tomorrow. Going to be hard not to play him. Chubb is looking like that more contrarian play there, up there. Run first team hasn't been able to do well the past 2 games with Sean back. 17 attempts is good, just didn't get a touchdown. And then they fell behind in Cincinnati, so he only saw 4 attempts. Did see 3 targets for 20 yards, which is solid. That's where he got most of his points from. But we know if they go down, which they shouldn't because the offense for the Ravens is abysmal. So I do think they're going to rely heavily on Nick Chubb. You could definitely get different by paying up for both running backs. People will do that, but I don't think it'll be as popular with all the good wide receiver plays at the top between, Waddle, Hill, Justin Jefferson, Diggs. There's just, a ton of wide receiver options you can go to. So I don't think people are all going to play both running backs at the same time because it's very limiting, especially if you play Josh Allen for the rest of your lineup. But yeah, I really like both of them, as well as Dalvin Cook. He's seen a ton of targets, a ton of touches, but he's not been able to do, much at all with them. 22, 42 yards, 20, 86, 15, 23. I mean, he's just been abysmal running the ball behind this offense line. He does have some upside, especially against a bad Indiana defense. So the top 3 running backs all look great. If I had to rank them, I'd say it'd be Taylor. Then I'd say Chubb, just because I like indifferent. His ownership should be a little bit lower. And then Dalvin Cook. But all 3 look great. And then the headache is in this 5K range. I mean, you got Singletary, who versus New England, he was the second running back. He still did well, but James Cook was the first running back. And then for the Jets, it flip-flopped. Singletary was the first running back. James Cook was the second, and they both did not do well. So that's a headache there. A headache for this Miami situation, because if Wilson is back, they will split the carries. Mostert will be running back 1. Okay. And then Wilson also has some upside. So it's just a headache with this whole running back situation. And then J.K. Dobbins is back. Saw 15 attempts, did very well against Pittsburgh. But you also have Gus Edwards, who saw 13 attempts. So really, it's just all 3 teams that have double running backs. They have handcuffs. They were going to run 2 different running backs the whole game. So it's just super annoying because any one of them could have a good game, and it could really just, keep you from cashing or ruin your whole lineup if you pick the wrong one. If I had to choose my favorites, and then I'll go off with like Singletary. You have James Cook, who obviously was running back 1 versus New England. Versus the Jets, he was running back 2. No real rhyme or reason why, but I think if I had to pick out of this range of like running back 1s and 2s who are all splitting the backfield, I think my favorite would be James Cook, 4,800, because of the price tag and the ability to catch passes, because he caught all 6 in that first game against New England, which he got the start. And then my second one would be, it'd probably be Dobbins or Edwards, a tie between the 2. Those 3 would be my favorite out of the whole group, followed by Mostert, Wilson, and Singletary. But yeah, it's a huge headache in this range. I mean, Singletary is there. Snow game, they should rely more on the running backs if you think that. So maybe he makes him more viable. It's just a huge, huge headache in this running back situation. But yeah, those are kind of the ranking in order as I put them. So I'm going to throw James Cook in there for now. For the wide receiver situation, Justin Jefferson obviously looks like the clear number one wide receiver in terms of this board here, because they're playing in a dome. The weather's not going to affect them. He's been seeing tons of targets, 10 plus every game. So if you can get up to Justin Jefferson, he looks like a great play, even against a pretty decent Indiana secondary. Tyreek Hill, it just comes down to kind of ownership, and are you going to get risky in this Miami and Buffalo game with the weather? Like, will they be able to pass it? No one really knows. Their passing props are set pretty low, but I like taking the risk. And with that being said, I'd like to get into Stephon Diggs there. Don't mind getting into Tyreek. I think ownership will be kind of low on him. We'll have to see if people get the weather news and they hop off Tyreek, but yeah, maybe his ownership comes in lower. You could definitely take a shot there, but I like getting into Stephon Diggs. Even in this weather, he's going to see targets, especially if they get to the red zone. They don't mind throwing it to Stephon Diggs there. So he does have a little bit safer floor than I'd say a Waddle does. Cooper, I like him as a I like him as an option there versus Baltimore. Going to be the number one option for Deshaun Watson. They haven't really been able to connect as of yet, but he did see 9 targets, 7 targets, so he's firmly involved in that offense. It just comes down to him being able to catch the balls. So I really like him at that price tag. And then Waddle, I love him as a run back here. Here's my tilt for a second. Miami would be such a good offense if Tua just realized that Waddle was a top 5 wide receiver talent and potential, and he actually throws him the ball. 5 targets and 4 targets, really, to a top 5 potential wide receiver in the league. You're only giving him the ball 5 times and 4 times. It already cost me $6,000 during the beginning of the season, during one of the showdowns, because the whole second half, he only got 1 target. Tua screwed me, but yeah, my whole gripe with Tua is he just doesn't throw Waddle the ball. All he does is just throws it to Tyreek, just peppers Tyreek. They just don't get Waddle involved. I really don't understand it, so he is definitely risky at $7,000, but I really, really like the upside here for Waddle. We know he's massive upside. It just really comes down to if Tua is actually going to throw him the ball. I'm not even a Miami fan, but I just don't understand why Tua just doesn't throw him the ball and Mike McDaniels just doesn't get involved more. It makes no sense from just an NFL fan perspective why Waddle is not getting at least 10 plus targets a game alongside Tua. That's all you have to do. They're two, arguably the fastest wide receivers in the NFL, 2 of the top talented wide receivers. Why aren't you getting Waddle involved as much as Tyreek? There's my rant, but love Waddle as a bring back here for a Miami or Buffalo stack, depending on which way you go. Cooper, mentioned him, how I really like him. Pittman, I think he's going to be a nice contrarian play here in this mid-range, 5,800. He should see, I'd say, closer to 7 targets a game, or in this game, if not more, especially if they go down big or go down a few scores. Pittman's going to get involved offensively. Matt Ryan, it's his favorite target, even, he hasn't really done well recently. Do they like Pittman? Thielen, don't mind getting into him. Kind of had like a ceiling game the past 2 to 3 weeks. Seeing a decent amount of targets. But yeah, he's just kind of there for me at 5,200. Don't mind him as like the secondary option. If you're not going to get to Justin Jefferson, don't mind getting to a Thielen or the tight end Hawkinson. I do think you need at least one of them if you're going to fade Justin Jefferson. Otherwise, you'd have to play Dalvin Cook, because either you're banking on them not scoring at all, or you're banking on Jefferson getting stopped and other guys stepping up. Peoples-Jones, I'm assuming he'll carry some ownership. He's done well recently. That Houston game, only caught 3 passes, but ran back a touchdown. And then he did well in that Cincinnati game. I don't trust it. 12 targets is a ton. He will be involved. Deshaun will throw him the ball, but I'm banking on Cooper being the main wide receiver, the main guy, and Njoku being that secondary guy. But yeah, you can get to him at 5,100. Don't think it's a great price tag. But yeah, he's definitely there. Do like Gabe Davis. We know he's huge playability and upside. Hasn't flashed it since week 10, but even in this matchup where the weather is a huge factor, I really like going to, just going to the well here with Allen, Diggs, and a Gabe Davis. And then there are some cheap options at wide receiver. Like Paris Campbell's a solid option here. He has upside, as we saw in week 10 and 11. Matt Ryan will look to throw him the ball. He's seen multiple targets every game since Matt Ryan, starting back up as a quarterback or as main quarterback. Duvernay, more of a contrarian play there. Their main guy is Demarcus Robinson right now. More of just a possession catch wide receiver. As you can see, the past few games, 8 and 6. Not big playability, but he's there at 4,000, pretty cheap. McKenzie's cheap, a nice pivot play here. 10, 5, and 5 the past 3 games in terms of targets. He's a pivot option off of Gabe Davis or even a Stephon. You never know what's going to happen with this weather game, so if things could get weird, McKenzie could get more involved. Pierce, second wide receiver option, or I guess 2A and 2B between him and Paris Campbell. He's upside. He did well versus Dallas there, caught a big touchdown. He just seems more boom or bust since the beginning of the season. But yeah, there's some cheap options here. KJ Osborne, once again, he had a decent game last week. Before that, he was kind of more wide receiver 3/4. There's cheap options. Doolin caught a touchdown, but yeah, there's cheap options to get to if you want to get, pay down for some guys. For the tight end situation, Andrews, I love Andrews. It's just, he's seen 7 targets, 6 targets. It's just, they're all pretty short. Huntley throwing the ball. He has upside. He could definitely fall into the end zone, have a decent game there at 5,700. But it's just tough trusting Huntley in this offense right now. So I'd rather get to a Hawkinson, especially if you're going to fade Justin Jefferson. Really think you're going to need to get to like a Thielen, Cook, or a Hawkinson. So at 5,000, he looks solid. Njoku had a huge game last game. Do expect him to be like the second option for Deshaun Watson behind Cooper. So I do like him a good amount. And then Knox, this could be an ugly game, ugly weather game. They can look to get Knox involved more. He was involved last game, 7 targets, caught 4 for 41 and a touchdown. Especially if they get close to the red zone. He's definitely always involved. So 3,900, you can substitute him in. You could take out a Gabe Davis. You could throw, take Diggs out, go to Davis and Knox, just depending on how contrarian you want to get. I don't mind getting to Gesicki here, and he's been terrible recently, but you really got to throw that out the window because he could randomly pop off. He could catch 1 or 2 catches, one of them being in the end zone, and easily pay off 3,400. So yeah, I don't mind taking a shot on here. He's super, super risky because of how bad he's been this season and how uninvolved he's been. But 3,400, if you want a piece from this game, Miami should be down. They are 7-point dogs, so they should be throwing the ball. Gesicki is going to be an option, especially in a snowy game. He could look to step up. And then for the Colts situation with the tight ends, they run a ton of tight ends. They run Granson, they run Jelani Woods, and then Mo Alley-Cox is all the way down here at 2,500. All 3 are worth a dart throw. If I had to rank them, I'd say it'd probably be Granson, Mo Alley, and then Jelani, even though Granson and Jelani have been more involved recently. Mo Alley-Cox, it always seems like he'll randomly get some touchdowns. So usually like 2 catches, one of them being a touchdown, the other being for like 10 yards. But he does have upside. Haven't seen it since week 4. He's been pretty bad recently since then. But he's there. But yeah, Jelani and Granson make for decent tight end options there. Pretty cheap, 27 for Jelani. Granson's 2,800. They should be tight end 1 and 2. Yeah, they're there, and that's really it for the tight end situation. And then coming down to the defense, favorite defense would be probably the Browns there, 3,100 going against Tyler Huntley. Second favorite would probably be the Bills there, 2,700, snow game. Miami going up to Buffalo, maybe they're not used to the weather. Maybe it's just a bad game overall, pretty low scoring. So yeah, I think those would be my 2 favorite. I'm assuming they're going to be chalky, but we know when it comes down to defense, all you really need is a pick 6. The salary doesn't really affect the outcome. There's no correlation in that. So usually you pay up for the cheaper or pay down for the cheaper defense to be able to pay up somewhere else. So right now, we'll just do Bills right now. And then to fill out the rest of the lineup for tight end, we'll just get weird. We'll go Gesicki there. And then for the wide receiver situation, so we have Josh Allen. Let's try to correlate this a little bit. We have Taylor, Cook. So we Josh, Cook, Diggs, gave us for heavy on Buffalo. That's all right. It's just more of a mock lineup. Gesicki is a bring back wide receiver. Could we fit in Waddle? We could, 3,500. But let's just move down to, I want to get to Cooper there. And then 4,400 left over. We could get to Paris Campbell. Kareem Hunt, always an option, I guess. If you think, Cleveland's going to be down. But I don't mind getting to a Njoku. You can even, go down even more below all these guys. You can get weird, go to Robinson. Or you can go to one of these cheaper options for like a Colts, let's say like an Alec Pierce, if they're going to need to be throwing the ball a ton. You can definitely look to him. KJ Osborne, Dawson Knox, Yeah, so I think for now, let's just get super random with this lineup. Throw in Pierce, you have 500 left over. You obviously get the Josh Allen stack with Diggs and Gavis, and then you get to bring back with Gesicki. You also have James Cook in there. You get Jonathan Taylor, who looks like the best probably play on the slate for tomorrow. And then we have Cooper, nice option there. And then Pierce, Indiana should be down. So Taylor's going to get involved, and then Pierce will be involved. And yeah, that's going to be the mock build lineup for tomorrow, the slate breakdown. So if you guys like the video, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notification bell. It really all comes down to just kind of your risk tolerance with the weather tomorrow in that Buffalo-Miami game, and then kind of building your lineup from there. So once again, hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.